H20.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare. I've had my share.
Hey guys, so I just finished watching Halloween H20 starring Jaime Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, Josh Hartnett as her son John, Adam Arkin as Will Brennan, Michelle Williams as Molly, Adam Handbird as Charlie, Jodie Lynn O'Keefe as Sarah, Janet Leigh as Norma, LL Cool J as Ronnie, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jimmy, and Nancy Stevens returning as Marion. Directed by Steve Miner, who also brought us the fantastic Friday the 13th Part 2, the one that I consider the best in the franchise, and Friday the 13th Part 3, the campiest one in the franchise. Pardon the pun. Now this one, as the title suggests, takes up 20 years after the original Halloween. Laurie Strode has been on the run ever since. She's faked her own death and now is the dean at a private school. It's a little bit confusing though, because the beginning of the movie opens up with Michael Myers tracking down Marion, the nurse who assisted Dr. Loomis in those first two movies, Halloween and Halloween 2. So she makes a welcome return in this one. He tracks her down, breaks into her house, and goes through all her files in regards to Laurie Strode's new identity and where she is. And there's a wall in the office where she has got a lot of newspaper clippings relating to Michael Myers. And there's stuff on there alluding to cults and Jamie Lloyd, and basically the other movies are referenced at the beginning of this movie. And the very fact that Laurie Strode has faked her own death to be in hiding from Michael Myers does ring true to the franchise as an ongoing beast. But it's also touted that this movie is a direct sequel to Part 2. So it's a little bit confusing in that regards. So Marion gets home and discovers that her house has been broken into. She promptly gets the boys who live next door to come help and investigate. Jimmy, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Tony, played by Brandon Williams. Jimmy goes into the house with his hockey stick, discovers the office has been ransacked, and the kitchen. There's some beers missing from the fridge. Oops. Naughty Jimmy. They go outside to tell Marion that the coast is clear. She goes back inside and she kind of realizes that, yeah, Michael Myers is possibly responsible for this break-in. There's a picture of Donald Pleasance as Loomis on the table, and Laurie Strode's file has gone missing. She sees a shape down the hall. There's a door open and the shadow is moving around. This is actually one of the smartest characters in a horror movie ever. She realizes that something is really, really quite not right here and quickly pisses off out the front door to go to the guys next door to get more help. Goes inside, finds the boys are murdered. There he is, poor Joseph Gordon-Levitt with a nice skating boot right in the face, and Tony waiting at the door. As soon as she opens the door, he collapses on her dead with a knife in the back. Michael Myers attacks. The cops turn up, investigating her house next door. She's screaming for her life. Michael promptly slits her throat, and then he is tracking his way down to find Laurie Strode's. Has a nice little interlude at a remote public toilet facility. We have a lady just pulling in to use the toilet with her young daughter, and there's a nice little scene where the mother is in the toilet. It's a pretty dingy, scary looking place. Her daughter is in the stall next door and she's having a bit of a sing-song. Her handbag's on the floor at her feet. Hand reaches in, grabs the bag. How freaking scary would that be? She sees through the door crack Michael Myers is walking out, stops to hesitate, continues on, steals her car, heading towards the school. There were scenes written for this movie that actually had a moment where there was a school student reading out a report on the Halloween murders. And as she's reading it out, going through all the things that Michael has done in the past 6 movies, Jamie Lloyd is actually mentioned, played by Danielle Harris in Part 4 and Part 5, and J.C. Brandy in Part 6. And her subsequent murder, and Laurie having changed her name to Kerry Tate. Hears this, she leaves the classroom to go and vomit, obviously traumatized by the death of her daughter. But that scene was left on the cutting room floor. I don't think it was even filmed. So that was in the initial script. But as the script stands now, and as the movie presents itself, all those other movies do seem to be of little consequence. This movie, initially entitled The Revenge of Laurie Strode, focuses entirely on Laurie Strode's story. So now she's a dean at a school. She has a son, John. His father is no longer on the scene. They've got a tense relationship after the last 20 years of baggage. She's been very traumatized by the events of that night 20 years ago, and her son has borne the brunt of her psychological condition. She's nervous, she's agitated, she pretends she doesn't know what day of the year it is. Every time this date rolls around, she is extra nervous, praying and hoping that her brother doesn't come to find her. So John's got a girlfriend, Molly, played by the wonderful Michelle Williams, and their two friends, Charlie and Sarah. The whole school's going on a camp to Yosemite. Initially, I'm just going to call her Laurie. Laurie didn't want her son John to go. She's very protective, and because it's Halloween, she's very nervous about what could possibly happen. She eventually reneges and decides to let him go. He's not actually too keen on the idea. So he, Molly, Charlie and Sarah all stay behind to have a romantic Halloween night together while the rest of the school conveniently leaves. So the kids are having a bit of a romantic time of it at the school while everyone else is away. Michael Myers is eventually turned up and the mayhem begins. First character we lose is Charlie, who you might recognise from Jumanji, the first original Robin Williams movie, plays the young version of Robin Williams' character. There you go. He meets Michael. Michael slits his throat. Sarah, his girlfriend, Jodie Lynn O'Keefe, goes looking for him. She has a very nasty episode with one of those waiters that go up and down in the wall. Michael jumps out at her. She goes to get into the dumbwaiter, finds her dead boyfriend inside, gets in. Michael slashes her leg really, really good. She takes off. Michael cuts the rope. The dumbwaiter falls just as she's getting out, crushes her leg real badly. Michael stalks up the stairs, finds her on the ground, almost bleeding to death through her busted up leg, and then promptly, repeatedly stabs her quite sufficiently in the back, quite a bit, and then hangs her up in the closet so that you can see the light. There's a light hanging down, and you can see it right through her when Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams find her later on. Quite graphic, very cool. So Michael Myers attacks them. They're running for their lives, trying to get back to the dormitory. The place is empty, and there's a really, really cool scene where they get in through a gate just before they get into the front door of their house. They pull the gate closed and lock it. Michelle Williams drops the keys just out of arm's reach, just outside. Michael Myers is stalking up. He's got the knife in through the gate. He's swinging around, really effective scene. They're trying to get in. They're screaming for their lives through the door behind them. Michael grabs the keys, and this is where things start getting really tense. Michael starts unlocking the gate. Finally, Laurie Strode opens the door. The kids get inside. She slams the door shut, and it's got a big circular window like a port. Just as she slams the door shut, Michael comes in, and there's a really beautiful scene where Laurie Strode is gazing through the window, and Michael Myers is staring back at her, and perfect. A fantastic movie. So from then on in, it's pretty much slasher city. Michael's after them. Laurie gets the kids to hide in a room while she and her boyfriend, Will Brennan, played by Adam Arkin, try to fend off Michael. LL Cool J turns up. He's a security guard. Will thinks it's Michael Myers about to appear around the corner, grabs the gun that Laurie has, and thinking it's Michael, shoots LL Cool J dead. Or does he? Michael steps up behind Will, knife into his back, and is lifting the guy like 3 or 4 feet off the ground. Laurie understandably freaks out, takes off, grabs the kids, gets down to the car, and just as Michael attacks, the car pulls off and they're down to the entrance gate of the school, about to leave. This is the point where Laurie Strode turns. Her whole life up to this point, she's been fearful of Michael Myers returning and killing her. She's been waiting and just not living a full life. She's been in hiding, and she's been scared to death. And at this moment, something in her switches. She opens up the gate to the school and tells the kids to go. And they're like, "What are you talking about?" She says, go down to the neighbour's house, call the police, call an ambulance, just go. They drove off. She closes the gate behind them. She has her axe, walks back into the school, calls him out. Tables are turned. And then we have a really cool scene where basically it's cat and mouse. Initially, Michael Myers is chasing after Laurie. She fights back, ends up kicking Michael's ass. There's just a lot of amazing imagery in this one. There's a scene where she's in a room with a lot of tables, and she's hiding under the tables, trying to get away from Michael. Michael is standing directly above her at one point. She distracts him by kicking a chair, and then she's still hiding under the tables. And then there's a scene where Michael is just stalking down the aisle, flipping the tables one at a time, trying to find her, and she gets away. But she does end up getting a knife and plunging it into Michael repeatedly, like a lot of times, into his chest, and then he falls out a window and crashes onto one of the tables in that very room. Turns out Michael's dead. Well, he doesn't get up and run away like he did in that first one. She goes down to finish off the job. Hooray, LL Cool J is not dead. He stops her from killing Michael, saying he's dead, he's dead. And then we cut to a scene where the paramedics and the police have all turned up. So Laurie takes this opportunity to reappropriate her axe, get a gun from one of the cops, tell them to load Michael's dead body into the ambulance, and then she takes off with Michael's corpse in the back of the ambulance. And as she's driving along, she's just watching him in that rearview mirror, and lo and behold, the body bag starts moving. Michael sits up, and just before he can lean forward and attack her, she slams on the brakes. Michael flies through the front windscreen. He lays on the road in front of her. She's daring him to get up. He does. She floors it. Van goes down a hill. And then in a nice scene, Michael's body is flung against a tree, and then the burning wreck comes tumbling down, crushes him against the tree. Laurie goes and confronts him, axe in hand. There's a tender moment where the two of them are reaching hands, looking at each other. But Laurie does realise that this guy's a complete psychopath and he will kill her next opportunity. So she swings the axe. Michael Myers' head is off. He's now officially dead. End of the franchise, because resurrection doesn't exist. It does exist. I've got to do that one next. So this is the one that most fans consider the last in the franchise. He's been beheaded. That's the end. And yeah, it can, if you think about it, well, if you don't think about it too hard, you can tie this one in to all the other movies. Like, the other movies can exist if you want them to. This one doesn't have to be a sequel to just part 1 and part 2. So those other movies can exist, although there is no mention of Laurie Strode's daughter at all, which is a little bit weird. But hey, it is what it is. But for me personally, yeah, I'd like to consider this one the last one in the series, because the way they bring Michael back in the next one is just fucking stupid, just to be perfectly honest. But this one is a good film. We have had a lot of mediocrity. Part 4, Part 5, Part 6, for me, weren't the greatest. They're okay. The legacy of Michael Myers was built on those movies, yes. But for me, yeah, they were just steeped in mediocrity and not good. Whereas this one is a real welcome return to form. Michael Myers is scary again. It's competently made. Steve Miner directed a great film. And you got the likes of Michelle Williams and Josh Hartnett and Adam Arkin and Jamie Lee Curtis, her mother, Janet Leigh. Yeah, Marion from Psycho is in this. It's fantastic. She even has a scene where she's going to her old Psycho car and the music from Psycho plays. So that was cool. Nice little throwback. And it's just a wonderfully made, creepy thriller. Yeah, it's very much in the vein of Scream. The slasher movies made a massive comeback with Wes Craven's classic movie. So Halloween H20 does feel a lot like the typical 90s slasher film of the time. But that's not a bad thing. A lot of those films were awesome. And the casting of Josh Hartnett as her son is really spot on casting too, because they have got a little bit of similarity in look. So you could really buy him as a real life son. And this movie actually, in the credits, actually says introducing Josh Hartnett. So it's like his first film. And Michelle Williams was fresh off Dawson's Creek. So there were names and faces that I like and respect. And this time around, Chris Durand was the man behind the mask, stunt coordinator. Appears in a lot of films these days, but mostly as stunts. But he did a competent job. One thing I did notice, and I was reading about it in the trivia section of IMDb just there, was that the mask does change a lot in this film. They filmed the movie with a certain mask, and then halfway through the director wanted to change it. So you will see some scenes in this movie where the mask is different. And there's even one scene where Michael is actually confronting Adam Hambird's character, Charlie. The mask is blatantly CGI. It stands out like dog's balls on this Blu-ray. Back in the day at the movies, I didn't really notice it so much, but yeah, and especially when you know that you're looking for it. I did know going in there was a CGI mask in this movie at one point, and it was very easy to spot. Now, I did see this movie at the theatre when it was released back in 1998, and the story goes like this. I went into the theatre and I was the only one there. It was like a 10 a.m. session. I like to go to the movies early in the morning because then you can have the rest of your day to do whatever you want. And I was the only one in the theatre. And the trailers started and the movie was just about to start. And one other person come in, massive empty theatre. They sat down directly behind me, like right behind me. So the entire movie, the creep factor was up to 11 I was really, really uncomfortable. I could have got up and moved, but I would feel really weird doing that because I just felt weird. But yeah, I couldn't understand why this person in a scary movie would sit directly behind me. So I was kind of on edge the whole time, waiting to be attacked, where my throat slit at some point. So when I came out of that film, because I had that experience watching the movie, the fear factor was definitely heightened. But I enjoyed the hell out of it though. This is one of my favorite movies in the franchise. It's the best one in the franchise since part 1. So I'd rank them part 1 and then this one and then Halloween 2. It's just a fantastic movie. It's just so well done. And that's what makes me feel so excited about the new Halloween coming soon. H20, 20 years later. The new Halloween is now 40 years later. And having Jaime Lee Curtis come back, maybe she just wants to come back after every 20 years. Who knows? But having her back in the franchise is definitely something that is beneficial for everyone involved. So yeah, I'm really excited. So giving H20 a rating, I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10 because I just enjoy the hell out of this film. It's so well done. The performances are awesome. There's tons of atmosphere. The kills are good. It's not a highly gory flick, but what gore we do have is nice. And Jaime Lee Curtis is just so wonderful as Laurie Strode, and it is awesome having her back in the movie. Also, I'm a massive fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so having him cameo at the beginning of the movie was really cool too. And having Marion from those first 2 movies appear, it just kind of tied everything in nicely, and I was just thoroughly entertained by this flick. It's so good and so refreshing after what we've been sitting through for the past 3 movies. It's just awesome. It just feels like a proper Halloween flick. So guys, thank you so much for checking into my movie review of Halloween H20. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.